Fort Caspar, or the Platte Bridge Station, was established in 1862. Its mission was not only to protect travelers on the Immigrant Trail, but also to guard the telegraph line and the bridge over the North Platte River.
Hi, Wyoming Traveler here, and I am at the site of Fort Caspar, Wyoming.
In 1847, the Mormons established a ferry across the North Platte River near present-day Casper, Wyoming. Pioneers reaching this point had to ferry across the river.
The crossing of the Platte River was accomplished in one of two ways. The first was a ferry that was built by Mormons in the 1840s, transporting wagons across the Platte River.
Or, if the water level was low enough, they could ford the river. Both were dangerous options. The best way to cross the river was by a bridge.
In 1859, Louis Gerard built a bridge across the Platte River. As we walk along the bridge, or the reconstructed portion of it, it continued on, and the meadow there in the background was where the river once ran.
Gerard also built a trading post.
This long row was originally built by Gerard as his trading post and residence. Later he leased the right side to the telegraph, and then around 1862 the Army took over the remainder of these buildings and used them as barracks and commissary.
The reason for the Army sending a detachment of soldiers to protect the telegraph and guard the bridge was, by the middle of the 1860s, relationships between the Indians and the immigrants and settlers in the area had deteriorated. When the Army took over Gerard's property, they called the complex the Platte Bridge Station. In July 1865, several thousand Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Sioux warriors gathered in the hills west of the North Platte River and began raiding around the Platte Bridge Station. Their plan was to destroy the station, the telegraph, and most importantly, the bridge. On July 26, a large force of Indians was observed west of the bridge. Lt Caspar Collins led a detachment of 25 troopers over the bridge to escort and protect a group of Army wagons returning from the western stations. A force of somewhere between 1,000 to 3,000 warriors attacked the column, cutting it off from the bridge and its support force. Lt. Collins attempted to have his troopers fight their way back to the bridge. During the fighting, Lt. Collins and 5 troopers were killed. The fort was then named in his honor. The Battle of the Platte River Bridge, however, is the subject of another video.
Off in the distance is where the Battle of the Platte Bridge Station took place, and where Lt. Casper was killed.
The warriors were unable to accomplish their desire to destroy the telegraph station and the bridge because of a howitzer and the entrenched troopers on the east side of the river. The naming of the fort is an interesting story. Forts named for individuals usually use the surname, Fort Bridger, Fort Halleck, for example, or sometimes Christian and surnames, Fort Phil Kearny, Fort Fred Steele. The name given the fort was Lt. Collins's Christian name because a Fort Collins already existed in Colorado and named for Lt Caspar Collins' father, Lieutenant Colonel William Collins. For the next 2 years, Fort Caspar was expanded, as can be seen in the chart. The red circle is the location of the original fort and the current reconstruction. In 1867, the fort was abandoned. The troops transferred to Fort Fetterman. The buildings were then dismantled and used in the construction of that fort. The replicated fort was constructed in 1936 by the Civilian Conservation Corps, based on several sketches made by Lieutenant Collins. The fort was reconstructed as Fort Collins, or the Platte River Station, as it would have looked in 1863 to 1865. In addition to the reconstructed fort, there is a museum telling the story of Fort Caspar and the area.
Entering into the museum, there we have some costumes or uniforms. Some of the earlier history. Now proceeding directly into the fort area. As we view the fort, the building here is a replica of the sutler's store. This was the blacksmith shop. Blacksmithing was essential to life on the frontier. This room is set up as a officer's quarters. Another building, a room, that were officers' quarters. And this quarters were set up as a 2-officer quarters. And here was the wash house. These were the stables. This was the barracks, mess hall, and over there where the fireplace is was the kitchen, which we'll look at closer. There at the fireplace where the cooking was done, and panning over to the mess area, and then you can see the barracks. Okay, more barracks rooms, some located there beyond the door.